You've been gone for 8 months, Vera. People adjust. You can't wake up and expect your life to still be there. That is what my twin sister said to me. I was calling from a hospital phone. I had been in a coma for 241 days. I woke up 4 hours earlier in a room where the light was the wrong color, and the first thing I had done, before asking for water, before asking what month it was ask for my phone. The nurse, Paulette, said my phone had been taken home by my emergency contact in the early weeks. My emergency contact was Mara, my twin sister. I called the number I had memorized since I was 17, the landline at my apartment in Lincoln Park, Chicago, the apartment I owned. The one I had saved for and purchased and furnished and lived in alone for 3 years before everything ended on a Tuesday morning in February. She answered on the second ring. I said, "Mara, it's Vera." A silence, then, "You've been gone for 8 months, people adjust. You can't wake up and expect your life to still be there." I want you to hold that sentence, not as cruelty, as a statement of fact from someone who had already made all the decisions and filed them somewhere I couldn't reach. She had adjusted. She had taken my apartment, my savings, my fiancé, my professional identity, my name in signatures on documents that would take attorneys 6 months to fully excavate. She had been living my life while I was unconscious. She had furnished it, settled into it, decided she was keeping it. She did not know what I had already put in motion in the 4 hours since I woke up. She did not know about Margaret. Let me tell you what my sister did in 8 months. And let me tell you precisely, in the order it happened, what I did when I came back. My name is Vera Callahan. I am 30 years old. I am a contracts attorney at a mid-size commercial firm in Chicago, Osai, Brennan, and Park, 12 attorneys, a client base that skewed toward mid-market real estate and corporate transactions. I had been at the firm for 4 years. I had made associate in year 2. I had a caseload and a reputation and a supervising partner named Margaret Ose who described my work, once, as the kind of precise that makes opposing counsel nervous. I grew up in Oak Park with Mara. We are identical twins, the kind that fooled teachers through 7th grade and stopped bothering after that, because the ways we were different had become increasingly difficult to miss. I was organized. I arrived early. I kept documentation the way other people keep habits, automatically, without thinking, because it had been useful enough times that it had become reflex. Mara was different. I want to be fair about this, because she is my sister and I grew up alongside every version of her. Mara was vivid. She filled rooms. She could make strangers feel immediately known. She did creative work, graphic design, brand identity, freelance clients across 3 time zones, and she was good at it. She moved between cities. She stayed in places until they no longer fit, then found the next one. She had been back in Chicago for 8 months before the accident. Back in my orbit, dinner on Sundays, a spare key to my apartment for the 2 weeks I had been traveling for a client, and she needed somewhere with a real kitchen. Back in proximity to everything I had built. Our parents were gone. Our mother died of a cardiac event 2 years earlier, sudden, no warning, the kind of loss that arrives before you have room for it. Our father had remarried and moved to Scottsdale. He was not estranged, we spoke on holidays, but he was not close. In every practical sense, Mara and I were each other's nearest family. This is relevant. It is relevant in the way of a detail that seems ordinary until you understand what someone used it for. Daniel was my fiancé. 3 years together, we had met at a client event, the overlap of his architecture firm and my firm's client base. He was warm in the particular way of someone who pays attention without performing it. He noticed when people changed the subject because they didn't want to discuss something. He remembered what you ordered the second time at a restaurant. We had been engaged for 7 months when February came. The accident was a Tuesday morning. I was driving to the firm, a left turn I had made 600 times, when a delivery truck ran a red light on the cross street. The impact was on the driver's side. The next thing I was aware of was the light in the hospital room being the wrong color. In between, 241 days, 3 surgeries, a medically induced coma that became a prolonged one. Brain function that stabilized slowly, then improved, then one morning was simply present. Aware. Mine again. Paulette was my nurse on the recovery floor. She had been there for 6 months of the 8. She was the first person I spoke a full sentence to. She told me, carefully, in the way of someone who has been holding information and waiting for the right moment, that my sister had not visited in 4 months. That she had, in the first 2 months, been present daily. That she had answered questions from the medical team as next of kin. That she had signed paperwork. That she had taken my personal items, phone, wallet, keys in the second week, for safekeeping. That in the past 4 months, the only contact from my emergency contact had been 3 phone calls. Administrative, about billing. Before she gave me water, Paulette pressed a small notebook into my hand. She said, "I thought you might need this." 4 hours later, I borrowed her cell phone and called my apartment. Mara answered on the second ring. I did not know all of it immediately. It came in pieces, some from Paulette, some from Margaret, some from the bank, some from the firm's managing partner. Some of it I learned in the order it happened. Some of it I learned in the order I was strong enough to hear it. This is the order it happened. Week 1, Myra arrived at the hospital with a bag and a folder of questions. She spoke to the medical team as next of kin. She signed consent forms for the first surgery. She sat in the waiting room for 11 hours. I want to be precise, she was present in the beginning, and I will not claim to know what she felt during those hours. What I know is what she did during that time. Those are 2 different things. Week 2, she took my belongings from the hospital room. Phone, wallet, apartment keys, the small notebook I carry in my bag. She told the nursing staff she would keep them safe. Week 4, she moved into my apartment. My neighbor Patricia in 4B, 11 years in that building, saw her arrive with 2 suitcases on a Saturday and assumed I had a house guest while I recovered. Mara told her she was staying to manage Vera's affairs. Month 2, Daniel. I have thought about this part more carefully than any other. Not because it is the most legally significant, it isn't. Because he had been the person I called first when good things happened. The person who knew how I took my coffee, why I didn't sleep well before trial prep, what it meant when I went quiet. He had been assembled from years of specific attention. He was not a stranger who made a bad choice. He was someone who had all the information and made one anyway. He went to the hospital in the first weeks. He sat with my medical team. He was present in the way I had always known him to be, structured, attentive, the kind of person who shows up without being asked. At some point in month 2, Mara started answering my phone when he called. She said she was updating him on my status. The conversations became longer. They began meeting near the hospital. She told him she was managing everything alone, that it was exhausting, that she needed someone. He knew she was Mara. He told himself they were just talking. By month 4, he had stopped coming to the hospital entirely. I want you to sit with what that means. He did not stop coming because he had given up on me. He stopped coming because a version of me had made herself available, and he found the available version easier to choose. He had looked at my face every day for 3 years. He had proposed to me on a Tuesday in October when the lake was flat and gray, and he had planned nothing except what he wanted to say. He knew, with complete certainty, that the woman he was meeting for coffee was not me. He chose to forget the difference because remembering it required something he had decided not to give. That is the sentence I needed 241 days of unconsciousness to fully understand. Month 3, Mara contacted my firm. She sent an email from my personal address. She had my phone, she had my login. She said I was recovering, that I would be out for an extended period, that I was available for light remote communication on non-urgent matters. This bought her approximately 6 weeks with the firm before the quality of communication became notable. Margaret Ose noted it at week 4. She is precise, the kind of person who notices when someone's sentence structure changes, when response time doesn't match a known pattern, when something about the texture of communication differs from the 600 emails that came before. She documented it. She printed the emails. She put them in a file with my name on the tab. Month 4, Margaret called the hospital directly and asked to speak to me. She was told I was not receiving calls. She was connected to Mara. Mara told her I was improving, but communication is still limited, and that she was helping manage Vera's correspondence. Margaret thanked her. She hung up. She added the call log to the file. That same month, the firm suspended my active caseload and shifted my clients. They continued to process my salary into a direct deposit account Mara had changed using my login credentials. The payroll administrator flagged the account change as irregular within 2 months. Margaret requested the salary be suspended and redirected to a firm-held escrow account pending verification of my status. This was not communicated to Mara. It was simply done. 8 months of salary, 4 of which had been routing into a firm escrow Mara had never found. Month 5, the checking account. Mara had my phone, my bank login, my answers to security questions sisters share the way sisters do, birthdays, pet names, childhood addresses. She moved money. Gradually, then less gradually, managed carefully, in amounts that stayed below the automatic flagging threshold. Consistent, spread across weeks. The bank flagged it at month 6, sent a letter to my apartment. Mara received it. She did not respond. Month 7, she signed my name on the HOA occupancy document, a form my building required annually, confirming residency, signed by the owner. She signed it. I have a copy of that signature. It is close, but there are 3 letters in my last name that she always wrote slightly differently. A childhood habit she never corrected. I recognized it the moment the document was placed in front of me. Month 8, Paulette, who had been watching all of it from the recovery floor, began keeping her own notes. She is not an attorney. She has no legal training. She is a nurse with 31 years of practice and the specific attentiveness of someone who has spent 3 decades reading situations in rooms where people are not always honest about what is happening. She noted the dates of Mara's visits. The 4-month gap. The billing calls. The way next of kin had shifted from presence to paperwork. She kept the notebook in her locker. She told no one. When I woke up, she gave it to me before she gave me water. I want to tell you what the next 72 hours looked like because the sequence matters. After the call with Mara, I sat in the hospital bed and took inventory. My apartment, occupied by my sister. My checking account, partially drained, flagged, restricted. My fiancé, no longer visiting. My professional email, accessed and managed by Mara for 6 weeks before the firm suspended it. My phone, keys, wallet, personal documents, in Mara's possession. What I had: a hospital bed, a borrowed phone, a nurse's notebook, and 4 hours of consciousness. I called Margaret Osei, not the firm's main line. Her direct line, a number I had memorized because reaching Margaret through a switchboard was a courtesy she did not require. She answered on the first ring. She said, "Vera." Not "is this Vera," not surprise. Just "Vera," as though she had been expecting this call and had not known when it would come. I said, "I just woke up. I need to tell you what's been happening." She said, "I know most of it. I have a file. How are you?" She had 29 printed emails. She had the call log. She had a written memorandum from an external attorney she had consulted in month 5. A colleague named Adiz Ike, 12 years in criminal defense, now specializing in fraud and identity crimes. She had a copy of the letter the bank had sent to my apartment in month 6, forwarded to her by the building manager when he grew concerned and didn't know who else to call. She had been building it, without me, while I was unconscious. I asked her why. She said, "Because you did not become the kind of attorney you are by being unclear about documentation. I assumed you would want a record when you came back, and I assumed you would come back." I stayed in the hospital 11 more days, the medical team's requirement. In those 11 days, using Paulette's cell phone and then a replacement phone ordered to the hospital, I did the following. I filed a report with the Chicago Police Department: identity theft, forgery, financial fraud. I provided the bank transaction records, the HOA document with Mara's forged signature, and the dates of each withdrawal. I called my bank. The remaining funds in the accessible checking account were frozen pending investigation. The firm's escrow, 8 months of salary, held by Margaret's instruction, was released to a new account in my name. I contacted the HOA. I informed them the occupancy document had been signed fraudulently. They put the matter with their legal team. On day 11, when the medical team cleared me, I had a car service bring me to my apartment. I still held the deed. I was still the owner. I used the building manager's master key. Gerald had worked with the building since before I bought the unit. When I showed him my discharge paperwork with my photograph, he used the key without hesitation. I knocked first. Myra opened the door. She was in my apartment, wearing my robe, holding a coffee mug I had bought in Portland 2 years ago. The apartment was clean, she had kept it well. My furniture, my art, my kitchen. She had added nothing of her own except a suitcase near the bedroom door and a laptop on my desk. She looked at me for a long time. She looked at me the way people look at something they had convinced themselves was gone, and then, slowly, recalculated what was standing in front of them. The specific experience of being read by someone who shares your face, who knows every version of it, who had spent 30 years standing beside it and 8 months trying to inhabit it. She said, "I was going to, I thought you might not." 30 minutes, Mara. She opened her mouth once more. Closed it, she picked up the suitcase. She picked up the laptop. She untied the robe and left it on the chair. She walked past me through the doorway, close enough that I could smell my own shampoo on her hair. That detail landed somewhere precise and stayed there. She did not speak again. I looked at the robe on the chair for a moment after the door closed. Then I picked it up. I held it for exactly as long as I needed to. Then I put it on. I walked to the window. My apartment, my view, my city, still exactly where I had left it 8 months ago. Then I went to make coffee. Before I tell you what happened next, what the police report became, what the civil case became, what happened to Daniel and Mara, and the life she had tried to build from the pieces of mine, I need to stop for one moment. Because some of you listening to this know what it is to come back to something that was moved while you were gone. Maybe it wasn't a coma. Maybe it was a divorce, a job loss, a season when you were absent from your own life and someone who should have held the door for you walked through it instead. Drop a comment right now. Tell me, has someone ever tried to take something from you while you were down? And what did you do when you got back up? I read every single one. Drop it now, I'll be here. Margaret Osai's office is on the 7th floor of the Osai, Brennan and Park building in the Loop. She has been in that office for 19 years. She has a particular quality of stillness, not from patience, but from precision. She does not move until she understands the full shape of what she is looking at. She placed the file in front of me 3 days after I left the hospital. It was organized by category. Not chronologically, categorically. Tab 1, Email Documentation. 29 printed emails with highlighted passages where phrasing, syntax, or response pattern differed from the 600 prior emails in her records. She had annotated 17 of them. Small notes in the margin, passive construction not typical of VRC. Incorrect article usage in legal reference. This is not how Vera Callahan writes. She had been building a comparative linguistic record without being asked, without knowing if it would ever be used. Tab 2, Communication Log. Every call to and from my number routed through the firm during the 8-month period. The 4-month gap where no direct voice contact had been made. The call she had placed to the hospital and the name of the person who answered on behalf of my next of kin. Tab 3, Financial. A copy of the account change notification the payroll administrator had flagged. The escrow authorization Margaret had signed. The total held, 8 months of associate attorney salary, accruing without interruption, in an account Mara had never found. Tab 4, the external attorney's memorandum. Adiz Ike, 12 years in criminal defense, now specializing in fraud and identity crimes. The memorandum was dated month 5. It outlined the criminal exposure from what Margaret had documented. Identity theft under Illinois Statute 720 ILCS 5-1630, a Class 1 felony for financial damages over $1,000. Forgery under 720 ILCS 5-17-3. Potentially wire fraud if the email access crossed federal jurisdictional lines. Margaret had held this memorandum for 3 months. She had told no one. She said, "I didn't know when you were coming back. But I thought you should know what was waiting when you did." I asked how she had known something was wrong in the first place. She said, "The first email that came in after your accident, the one about light remote communication, used a comma splice in a sentence about case management. You have been at this firm for 4 years. You have never written a comma splice. A grammatical error. In week 3, she had known. She handed me the file. I handed it to Adiz Ike the following morning. Adiz filed the criminal complaint with the Cook County State's Attorney's Office within 48 hours. The complaint included bank transaction records showing $22,400 in unauthorized withdrawals over 5 months. The HOA document with the forged signature and forensic comparison from a handwriting analysis firm, the 29 emails, the communication log, and a written statement from Paulette, a nurse whose 31 years of observation constituted, Adiz said, one of the most precise witness accounts she had encountered in 12 years of practice. The state's attorney accepted the case in 11 days. The civil suit was filed simultaneously. Full financial restitution, legal fees, damages arising from 8 months of documented exploitation during a period of incapacitation. I also spoke to Daniel. He called on day 7 after I returned home. I answered. He said he needed to explain. He said it had developed, that he hadn't planned it, that he had believed at some point that I might not be the same when I woke up. That Mara had. I said, Daniel, you knew she wasn't me. He said, it was complicated. You knew she was not me and you made a choice, I said. You're allowed to have made it, but I'm not the right person to process it with. Vera, please. I wish you well, don't contact me again. I ended the call. I sat in my apartment, mine, clean and correctly furnished and mine, and looked at the wall for a moment. Then I made coffee. Then I opened my laptop and began reviewing the backlog of client matters Margaret had kept organized during my absence. I did not require resolution from him. He had already given me everything I needed to know. The form it took was not what I would have chosen, but the information was clear, and I had always found clarity more useful than comfort. The criminal case moved through the Cook County system over 9 months. Mara hired an attorney. I will not spend time on his arguments because they did not succeed. The forensic signature analysis was admissible and clear. The email linguistic analysis, introduced through Margaret as an expert witness, with 29 annotated documents from a practicing attorney with 19 years of comparative records, was not challenged. The bank records were complete. Paulette's written statement, with dates, times, and direct quotation where she had it, was filed without revision. Mara accepted a plea. The terms, full restitution of $22,400, 30 months of probation, 2 criminal convictions on public record. A permanent, searchable, public record. On the morning after Mara's plea was formally entered into the Cook County Circuit Court record, I searched her name in the public access portal. It took 4 seconds. The case appeared immediately, her full legal name, the charges, the convictions, the plea date, the probation term. Permanent, formatted, quietly, completely accurate. I read the entry once, then I closed the browser. I picked up the contract I had been annotating before I searched. I found the paragraph I had left mid-note. I finished it. There was no exhale I had been holding, no moment of triumph I had been building toward. There was simply the record entered, the case closed. The documentation, now embedded permanently in a system that does not soften with time or forget with distance. Mara had moved into my apartment with a suitcase and a plan. She had signed my name, spent my money, answered my phone, and decided that an open door was the same thing as an unclaimed life. The Cook County Public Access Portal disagreed, in 4 seconds, permanently. In Illinois, a Class 1 felony does not disappear. It does not soften. It does not become unavailable with distance or time. It sits in the public record the way all permanent things sit, quietly, precisely, accessible to anyone who types a name into the correct field. It appears on background checks. It appears when a prospective client runs due diligence before signing a creative contract. It appears when a landlord screens an application. It appears when a licensing board requests documentation and the documentation answers honestly, without being asked twice. Mara had built her freelance practice over 8 years entirely on referral and trust. Creative work, brand identity, graphic design, runs on that trust as its operational foundation. Clients who hand you their brand are clients who have decided you are safe with it. That decision reverses the moment the public record suggests otherwise. The first to terminate was a boutique agency she had worked with for 3 years, a primary anchor of her income. They sent a single email, professional, brief, and final in the way of decisions already made before the email was written. 2 more terminated within the same month. By the end of the following year, 5 of her 8 active client relationships were gone. She had spent 8 months trying to inhabit a life built on precision, documentation, and 19 years of professional reputation. She had not understood that those things are not transferable. You cannot move into someone's professional identity the way you move into their apartment. The apartment has a key. The reputation has a record. And now, permanently, searchably, irrevocably, so did she. She moved out of Chicago. She did not tell me where she went. She was not required to. The civil judgment was entered for the full amount plus legal fees. She paid in installments over 2 years, each transfer arriving through a D's office, clean and administrative, with no communication attached. I returned to full caseload at the firm 7 months after waking up. Margaret assigned me a new matter on my first day back, a commercial real estate dispute, complex with 3 counterparties and a documentation trail that had been poorly maintained by prior counsel. She said, "I thought you might enjoy something that requires attention to detail." I said, "Give me the file." She handed it across the desk. I opened it on the first page. It felt precisely like coming home. If you are listening to this and you are in the middle of something, a loss, an absence, a season where you stepped away and came back to find the space rearranged, I want to say this carefully. The people who move into your life while you are gone are counting on something specific. They are counting on the idea that an open door means the room is unclaimed. That absence is the same thing as surrender. That if you were truly serious about your life, you would not have left it, even for a moment, even for 241 days, even for reasons entirely outside your control. They are wrong about this. What I had when I woke up was not power or money or presence. I had documentation. A nurse's notebook, a managing partner who noticed a comma splice in week 3, a payroll administrator who flagged an irregular account change. Small, precise, unglamorous acts of record-keeping performed by people who paid attention when it would have been easier not to. That is what I had. It was enough. If you are in a situation where someone is trying to take something from you, your home, your finances, your professional identity, your name, I am not telling you it will be easy or fast or clean. It was not. 9 months of criminal proceedings and 2 years of civil installments, and a version of my sister I no longer recognize in any useful way. But the record exists. Permanently, in 4 seconds, in a public portal that does not soften with time. Build your documentation before you need it. Keep the emails, note the dates, find your Margaret, find your Paulette. They are often already in the room, already watching, already building a file with your name on the tab, already waiting for you to come back so they can hand it to you. Come back, return to your desk, open the file. Find the paragraph you left mid-note and finish it. An open door is not an unclaimed life. The record knows the difference. And now, permanently, searchable for anyone who types the correct name into the correct field, so does the Cook County Circuit Court. If this story stayed with you, hit like and subscribe. It helps more people find these stories. And I asked you in the middle, has someone ever tried to take something from you while you were down? What did you do when you got back up? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. Until next time, take care of yourself. Build the record, hold the file, come back, and never confuse an open door with an unclaimed life.